Welcome. I'm Paul Kapuska, editor of the Stadium Tech Report. We're here today with a special edition of the Stadium Tech Report podcast. We're joined by a team of experts from Galtronics, a company with 40 plus years of history in the high-quality RF antenna market. Galtronics is currently in the process of rolling out an entirely new line of hyper-directional cellular antennas that will provide lower cost and lower weight options for venue deployments. With us today are Leighton Carroll, CEO of Galtronics, Whit Martin, Vice President of Sales, and Sadeg Farzaneh, CTO, to give our audience more details about where the company has been and where it sees itself going in the market for large public venue cellular deployments. Leighton, I'd like to start by asking you to give our audience a short overview of just who Galtronics is and what is its history in the large public venue space.
Yeah, so Galtronics has been around, it's incredible to say, for 40 plus years. It was actually founded by some ex-Motorola engineers, and our chairman years ago saw it as a really interesting technology team with some unique products. And it really started a lot in the DAS space, grew into the small cell space. Came to Canada. It was originally over in Israel, came to Canada in 2011. And since then, we have been developing new product. We have multiple businesses underneath the Galtronics family. But really since, I would say, about 2020, we've really been on, I would say, a unique product development cycle where we've leaned into a number of specific use cases, saw a lot of opportunities for us. And a big part of that is the large public venue space, large festivals, large events, and we've really invested heavily in that space. And kind of a neat thing is Galtronics in this, against this backdrop, we have really been growing because I'm very proud of the team, what Whit, what Sadeg have done. We feel like we've gotten a lot of things really right for our customers. And at the end of the day, we can talk about it, but customers show you their love when they spend money because they see real value in what you're doing. And our business has really grown against this backdrop. So I'm super excited about what we're here to talk about.
I know a lot of our audience is very savvy about cellular deployments and distributed antenna systems, but can you maybe take a step back and do a 101 on just what exactly a distributed antenna system is and what its components are, and maybe a little bit of how it's different from a Wi-Fi network?
Yeah, so look, DAS is the vehicle principally designed to enable cellular signals in structures, whether that's in a giant metal structure like a cruise ship or a stadium. There's a lot of things that's going to block the signal from the outside. Now, DAS can also cover Wi-Fi, but Wi-Fi tends to be its own animal, and it covers different bands of frequency, but more to the point, it does different things. And en masse, when you have your customers, all those people in it, and by the way, extra levels of security, authentication, quality of service, cellular tends to eclipse Wi-Fi in terms of capabilities. Now, in terms of components, it's kind of the same thing from going back, to cruise ships, to buildings, to stadiums. You're going to have a head end. That's the active equipment. You will have units that are placed throughout a given structure or building or ship that deliver the signal out to the individual antennas, right? And if you go back, there was a whole rage, go back 8 years about, under seat antennas, right? Or railing antennas. And that is morphed because as you see this going on, DAS, particularly in a stadium environment, because guess what? Here's a little secret. Cellular usage and data usage by customers it continues to explode. Well, you have to have more and more. And are you going to put antennas everywhere? You're starting this phenomena where in closed structures, you have now multi-beam or these hyper-directional antennas that came to the market, which tend to be mounted high on the outside to point down with dedicated beam structures that really effectively cover with a ton of frequency, a ton of dedicated radios, and really enhance that fan experience so you don't end up as we all have in our lives, in a stadium, and you're trying to make a call, and you get nothing. So really, there's been this evolution, and this now solution set allows you to have a combination of you'll have antennas in boxes, you'll have antennas pointing down from up high. You'll still have some of the traditional antennas, particularly in the walkways, the concession areas. DAS is still a major part of stadium technology and is really important for ensuring that the fan experience is at the high end, particularly if you consider some of the applications people are now starting to layer on that really work effectively in that DAS environment.
Maybe take a break here and just talk a little bit more about the individual components and why one supplier might be different than another supplier. When you're a team or venue owner, what should you be looking for in terms of reliability, quality, and market acceptance?
So there's some companies who have the active components, meaning this is the JMAs, the CommScope now, Andrew of the world, and it's a one-stop shop, and you can use them, and they'll give you everything for a stadium. Galtronics doesn't do the active side, and yet, in addition to our hyperdirectional multi-beams, we have long been a stadium player. Why is that? Why is Galtronics stuff all over Bryant-Denny Stadium if we didn't make the active equipment? And that was, by the way, that was led by AT&T and Verizon. When they want the absolute best RF performance. Well, guess what? You don't have to buy everything from that active component maker. We differentiate on having a high quality RF experience. And at the end of the day, the RF is what makes the difference in the quality of the signal that fan receives.
You touched a little bit on the hyperdirectional, but if you could, I'd like you to expand a little bit. The new top-down deployment that's enabled by this new technology really seems to be able to solve some of the lingering pain points of wireless deployments, like seat coverage on the floor, etc. Can you talk about the move to a top-down coverage philosophy and why that makes sense both for large venues as well as smaller ones?
Yeah, so roll back a few years. People have tried to come up with multi-beams that were effective. Certainly companies like CCI, the legacy CommScope, they've had flat panel products, but there were problems with beam stability. And we can talk all about kind of the technical side of that. Credit to Matsing, they had a product, it's a lens-based product. They're basically these giant globes, right? They're huge, they're heavy, but they actually worked really well and they have really good beam stability. They started getting used in a lot of these large venues because you could do a ton of beams. And the trick on it is each of those beams generally will have dedicated radios behind them. So each beam is clean and for a given section with a lot of horsepower behind it. And that effectively solves that issue. Go back to 2021, we saw the need to bring something really competitive to that product in a panel format, meaning it weighs less. And by the way, for us, we were able to do it. And, thank goodness for smart guys like Sadeg, come up with patented technology where we have that beam stability in a patented format, panel format, which doesn't take up that huge volume, weighs less. You can paint it, skin it. University of Alabama, they made it look like bricks on the side of a wall, which is interesting. And it gives real, I would say, competition in that market. And we're seeing a lot of venue owners looking at that and saying, we actually had this happen in an NBA arena. It was a 3PO design. They were originally going to use the big globe-like antennas. And the NBA arena said, we can't put that on the ceiling. The amount of structural reinforcement we'll have to do to the venue is substantial, right? Well, we have a product that works as effectively and weighs half for the same number of beams. They put our product in. And by the way, what was cool is the engineer, after that was over, was so pumped, A, because it worked so well, but B, they actually saved $750,000 in capital, not in taking into account the structural reinforcement that the venue owner would have had to do. So by having this kind of new technology as an alternative, it brings in something that's really cost effective. And by the way, this is not just for large venues. I'll give you an example. Our multi-beams have actually been at places like Tulane, which that's a smaller stadium. and that's not a dome, right? That's an open air stadium. That carrier customer who put it there is so excited about that product. They're actually talking, and Whit, keep me honest, talking about this could become the standard for these smaller venues to have that same level of amazing bread and butter coverage in a top-down hyper-directional solution.
It absolutely is, Leighton, and you're correct. That's going to be looked at as a kind of a cookie cutter application for smaller stadiums. So they deployed 4 of our multi-beams there, dual band, so with 5G technology, and they were thrilled with the outcome of the performance. So they're looking at that as kind of their standard model for some of these smaller stadiums.
And one comment, if I want to add, really, when it comes to top-down technology, just maybe to clarify the term for the audience, let's say that the traditional technique was using handrail or under the seat antennas or traditional antennas that was all around the stadium. Well, now we are replacing all of those with few antennas mounted on rafters or catwalks. Now, the advantage is that, first of all, it's a lot easier to plan. You get a lot of line of sight in terms of planning. On top of that, as technology evolves, let's say if new frequency band coming or you want to add new antennas, a lot easier than going all around the stadium and starting recabling. The jumper cables, let's say running all those jumper cables all around the stadium versus having them localized in one location, that's really a big advantage when it comes to top-down really philosophy.
It also seems to play into, we've just finished collecting results for our annual Stadium Connectivity Outlook Survey, where we ask questions of all the stadium tech leaders. And once again, the top concern for all of them is controlling costs. But at the same time, they also cite a priority of wanting to add more wireless capacity. So it seems like the combination of the top-down strategy and a more flexible type deployment can also just save not just top-line money, but OpEx and all around.
It was a great point, and by the way, that's right in our wheelhouse, right? I mean, that's when you can save $750,000 on an NBA-sized arena in terms of your deployment, let alone the structural reinforcement that particular arena had, it matters, right? Or we've seen in some cases, and this is both NFL and major college football, there are certain venues who super care about the aesthetics, and they don't want the giant globe in a highly visible place. And when you have a panel that's paintable and skinnable, and by the way, costs less, that's really interesting for some of those venues. So we're excited about it. And by the way, the reality is it works really well. I'll give you an example that is, it was a temporary deployment, but we did a trial with Deutsche Telekom in Europe. It was 250,000 people in the Hockenheimring, right? That's a big bunch of people. Deutsche Telekom, after that trial, they were so happy with the results, they contacted us and say, can we do a press release as Deutsche Telekom and mention Galtronics and your product by name? And of course, my answer is yes. And how fast can you get that done? Take it a step further. And Paul, I know you've seen this. Deutsche Telekom was so geeked up by it, they produced a YouTube video of the success they had covering that venue with our multi-beam. And that, by the way, the multi-beam was the backbone. They had a couple other products there, but over the course of that, they had one other product that was a tri-sector house adjacent to it or in a different area next to it. They carried 40 terabytes of data. Rogers stuck it in Rogers Center for the Taylor Swift concerts that went up in Canada. Mm-hmm. Using our products, our stadium products and multi-beams in the ceiling, they carried 30 terabytes of data. And if you add the cost effectiveness of that versus all the fiber, all the cabling with traditional DAS, and relative to some of the, our competitors' large globes for certain applications, it's a cool place to be. And we're really excited about what we're able to do for venue owners and venues in general.
I was thinking, we're called Stadium Tech Report. A lot of the stuff we talk about and look at is in a venue, in a building. But these days, the big music festivals like the one in Germany, and other big outdoor gathering areas, have traditionally been, just a toss up in terms of coverage. But it seems like, maybe it's not top down, but maybe it's straight across. The multi-beam and hyperdirectional allows you to do things for those large gatherings that
Absolutely.
probably were never able to be done before.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think Hockenheim is a great example where you don't have to have it straight in the ceiling and you can still get some great benefit from the product. And it's a great example of that.
If I add a comment, really, first of all, about when it comes to those applications, a lot of time those applications are temporarily, they're not permanent. And that's where one of the main advantage of a product, the ruggedization features, which is patented again, come into place because our products are a lot more rigid. They don't really, you can deploy them many times. There's a lot of ruggedization features which are unique and they are patented. On top of that, a lot of, when you say a stadium application, is not just about really covering the seating area or bowls. A lot of time there's tailgating area, the parking area that we have seen many multi-beam, which a lot of people are going to be there. Once traffic moves there, you want to make sure still you have the coverage in those areas, which we have seen people not only using our multi-beam to offer more capacity. We have some other unique features in terms of interference between outdoor area of the stadium versus indoor. We have multiple customers using our products because of the great interference rejection we have behind those antennas that enable them control interference between the outdoor system and indoor system. That has been another really feature that we see people are really seeing in our products.
Yeah, one other outdoor application I wanted to mention is we've got our multi-beams deployed at several of the NASCAR speedways. So Pocono, Texas Motor Speedway, Atlanta Motor Speedway. So those are other outdoor events. Although it's a grandstand that you're covering, but you're covering 100,000 plus people in those events.
Yeah, and I would also say with a lot of these new stadium developments too, it seems like you don't build a stadium anymore without building a commercial zone right around it. And it's not a typical commercial zone either, right? You have the big watch parties. It's a commercial zone where 30,000 people show up to watch a game. We talked about the venues, the venue operators, the owners, but mentioning Deutsche Telekom, it's always helpful to remember that in the DAS world, there are always two real customers for any deal. It's both the venue and the wireless carriers whose customers will use the networks. Can you talk a little bit about what Galtronics' relationship is with the carriers and why that's an important issue for customers to know about?
So Galtronics, irrespective of stadiums and everything else, we work with and do a lot of business with AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Rogers, Bell, Telus. By the way, we've done work in getting ready for the World Cup with AT&T Mexico and Telcel. We work with a ton of European carriers, Vodafone, Telecom Italia, several others that you may not have heard of, and then obviously Deutsche Telekom and others. You kind of get the idea. And separate from stadiums, one of the things I'm also proud of the team, and this really does go to Whit and Sadeg, we collaborate with those big carriers, particularly if I can just take the big three in the US and the big three in Canada. We have super strong relationships with them. All of them, everybody I just mentioned of the big three and the big three, they all use multi-beams for their own use because the products work that well. And by the way, they also use a lot of other products, things that aren't appropriate for a stadium, like small cells, other types of products that we make. We're all over Manhattan and New York City for small cells. Why is that? Because of the relationships with the carriers. When carriers know we're there and when carriers use us and choose us, I think that's a testament to the quality of RF that we have. Because, again, customers don't spend money with you just because Whit's a nice guy with a Texas accent. They spend money with us because we actually do what we say we're going to do. We stand behind it. We support our customers. And we have good product, and we're here for the long term. So for us, it's important to have those relationships. And for venue owners, 3POs, etc., they have to know that those relationships matter, because at the end of the day, you want those carrier customers on your network.
I'd like to wrap up with a kind of a crystal ball type a question about maybe a couple of questions, but what are the areas of antenna technology that Galtronics sees as a priority for more innovation, and what do you plan to do in there, and how are you prepared in terms of staffing, funding, engineering talent, et cetera, to address the future?
Just to segment this, we're seeing growth it's actually fun in a lot of different places. We've had really good product diversity, revenue diversity. We're growing with the wireless carriers across all our products. That's including stuff that's not appropriate for stadiums. That said, we're also very focused on the stadium market, and multi-beams and our stadium products that support that. That's a huge part of it. So to put this in perspective, go back to, I'd call it mid to late 2021, we had one multi-beam variant. We currently have 36. There's a pipeline of more coming out. We've had, when we started, it was more kind of fixed. Now we have a bunch of RET-enabled multi-beams. We have derivative technologies that the brains like Sadeg and his team are coming out with. We have more patents that are coming out around this technology. So our ability to serve this vertical is one of our core pillars for Galtronics, and we are investing in it. And to answer your question on the engineering talent, and he'll blush when I say this, but I think the world of Sadeg, his team is amazing, and we are absolutely planning to continue to invest there and continue to make our customers happy.
So, one comment, I want to add a few comments really. The stadium antenna, nowadays, a lot of people take antennas from suppliers, what is available. So you never get the optimal antenna really. So even in a multi-beam world, really, we see a lot of things could be done to really design those antennas for a stadium. And every stadium is different. From one stadium to the other, they need different type of antennas. And also, not only even aside from multi-beam, there's so many antennas that you want to power the corner areas. How can you design your antennas to the number of sectors, not necessarily the number of sectors. The number of sectors is not good. It's the optimum way to do that. Interference is key, really, for a stadium. Interference between sectors, coming up with antenna technologies to have great coverage, at the same time minimize interference, whether inside the stadium or between inside and outside. There's a lot of, or mechanical, of course. We wanted to as compact as possible, low visual impact, really things that visually appealing. There's a lot of areas like that we see really stadium needs new antennas.
So the short answer is, and Sadeg was probably more thoughtful than I was.
No.
We're going to continue to invest, and as you're hearing, you can think about some of the ways we're thinking about trying to skin additional cats and adding more value.
Yeah, I think what Sadeg is saying, he's saying there's new product coming without giving away the secret sauce.
Oh, come on.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
That's what the podcast is all about.
The big scoop.
Yeah. There's a lot to do. Yeah.
As our listeners know, we'll have all the links that we can attach to this podcast. If you go to the Stadium Tech Report site, but maybe in closing, Leighton, if you could just talk a little bit about what's the best way for a venue owner or carrier or anybody to contact Galtronics. How do you get the process started?
Well, so of course, there's the typical Galtronics.com. Look, you can see our names. I would say none of us are hard to find on LinkedIn or Whit Martin at Galtronics.com, etc. You guys kind of get the idea. Our email format's pretty straightforward. Look, we've got a good team that stand behind these guys and other teams at our company. So would love to get the outreach. Happy to work with folks and want to make people successful. That's the job.
Well, great. Well, this is Paul Kapuska for the Stadium Tech Report podcast. I'd like to thank the team from Galtronics for joining us today. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you for having us.
you.
Thank you. Have a great day.